All right, we'd like to welcome everyone out to the August Citizen Involvement Council meeting. We took July off since it was so close to the 4th of July, and we are back, and we'll turn the order to Barbara to do the roll call.
Tony, not here yet. Linda Basinger?
Present.
Dennis Anderson?
Present.
Amy Wilhite?
Here.
Kathy Hogan?
Here.
Tom O'Brien?
Here.
Joyce Gifford?
Here.
Faith Lee?
Here.
Rita Mills?
Here. Barely.
Jesse Buss?
Here.
Barbara Rankin? Harris Quinn? Karen Morey?
Here.
Bill McConnell?
Here.
Gary Fergus?
Here.
Brian Boyce?
Here.
Okay, thank you. First up tonight, we have a presentation by can't talk yet. Providence Willamette Falls Hospital, and I understand that Russ Reinhardt will be starting that out for us. Croaking that out, I heard.
Yeah, thank you for inviting us here and letting us come. My name is Russ Reinhardt. I'm the chief executive at the hospital, and as you can tell, I've actually lost my voice today. And the longer I speak, the worse it gets. So all I'm going to do is introductions, and then if some questions later I can maybe answer. But I think you all know Renee King, who's our PR marketing person at the hospital, and then Josh Kohlberg is the architect on the project. So they'll be presenting the kind of what we're asking for and where we're headed. So thank you.
Challenge my easel abilities here.
That's okay, we've got copies.
Yes. Okay, so does everyone have a copy of this map that we're putting up here? We're all good? Okay. So we did want to make sure that you had something a little easier for you to see, but we'll be talking a little bit about how this map is laid out. So the last time we presented to you was about 3 years ago when we were redoing our master plan, which is what we'll be talking about today. So since we did that, one of the developments that we've been able to put into place was our child and adolescent psychiatric unit. You may remember we talked about that as being one of the reasons that we were redoing our master plan at that time as well. And that's been very successful. We are employing more than 50 caregivers in high-wage jobs and caring for children in need from all over our state. So that master plan was approved to include the development of 2 new medical office buildings on the campus. Why don't we talk a little bit about what all the colored lines mean real quick, and can I ask you to do that for us, Josh? Thank you.
Absolutely. So the solid pink line is the existing MUE zoning boundary. And everything inside that pink line is zoned as mixed-use employment, which is where the hospital is currently located. The dark black line was the development boundary that was identified in the 2012 master plan. And what's being proposed in this land use application is what's represented by the dashed lines. The dashed pink would be an amendment or a modification to the comprehensive plan for the mixed-use employment zone. And the dashed black line would be a modification to the proposed development boundary of the master plan from 2012.
So we met with the McLaughlin Neighborhood Association twice. Once in a large meeting where we had invited everyone in the Neighborhood Association to come. It was intended originally to be a steering committee meeting. We were granted the opportunity to present to the whole Neighborhood Association at that meeting when we sent out a postcard to everybody in the Neighborhood Association. So we had pretty good attendance at that meeting and lots of questions and lots of thoughts about what we're presenting to you today. So after that meeting, there was a small group that we met with from the Neighborhood Association to continue fleshing out ideas, hearing concerns, having conversation. And so what we decided to do, because we do understand the concerns of the neighborhood association and the impacts that construction can have on a residential community, because we recognize we're kind of right plopped in the middle of the neighborhood, is two things. One, the original master plan allowed for us to have two medical office buildings. One on Division Street and 15th. In this, it's the northwest corner of Division and 15th. And does everybody see where that is?
Uh-huh.
Okay. And then the other one was on Division and Penn, so in this area where we currently have a parking lot. And so one of the things that we looked at doing is reducing that footprint of medical office buildings from 2 to 1. So we will just look at keeping the development on the northwest corner of Division and 15th. So that was hopefully to address the concerns of the neighborhood association to bring that building from 2 to 1. The other thing we did is that there's a little kind of a funny, almost like a Pac-Man shape here on Division and 14th. It's gray. And the gray properties are properties that we currently own, that the hospital owns. We originally talked about including that little Pac-Man shape over, so basically this line would extend here to request putting all of those properties in the master plan boundary of the hospital. We are taking that off and just including that the southwest corner of Division and 15th instead. So we've reduced the ask to include new properties in the master plan boundary. So as we started looking at just having one medical office building, we realized that there was an additional need to ensure that we don't negatively impact the parking for the neighbors that live around the hospital. That's been something that we've been very concerned about over the years, and we've been putting in safe kind of measures to ensure that people don't park in front of people's houses and block people's driveways and things like that. So with that realization with the one medical office building, it also came for us, we also realized that we needed to look at parking and what does that mean. So that's why we are going to ask for these properties to come into the master plan. These are 3 non-historically significant properties that could help us improve our ability to keep people from parking on the streets. These 2 properties over here are properties we currently own. That area would be part of the new medical office building. And so we need to, we will be requesting with the city to bring those into both the master plan and they need a zoning change as well. So if you've ever visited the hospital, you know that our front parking lot's kind of small. And so this is the best way that we figure we can ensure that there's adequate space for our visitors and our patients. So we don't really have a specific ask of the CIC. We are here as a courtesy. We would like to answer any questions you have as we continue to move on this process. Did I forget anything, Josh?
No, I think you covered it quite well.
Okay, great.
Okay, this is not.
So now that I've talked about it, I'm sorry, to you people over here, did you guys understand what I was talking about space?
No.
Okay,
And
so
very loud.
can I go over here?
There was no dimension, no direction on our chart.
Okay, so we originally were going to extend this line this way.
So you must see too.
We were originally going to extend this line this way and include these properties. but we've decided not to, so we've taken that off the table. So the two asks right now are to bring this property into the master plan and to bring these two properties into the master plan. And then these two also require a zoning change.
Why not try and take that other piece if you own it?
One of the concerns, we don't own these two pieces.
Oh.
That's one piece of it. But one of the concerns that we heard from the neighborhood association was only developing what we really need to develop. And by not bringing this in right now, if we need to down the road do something with this area, we would need to come back to the city and have this conversation again. So
Your plan is for this to be parking area?
very likely,
Yeah, that's what she said.
the building itself would be here. So did I get everybody on this picture?
Where is the building itself? Please
The
show.
building itself is this area.
That
Ren-
area.
Renee, are you replacing what were the hospice and children's
Yes,
centers
the little
buildings?
blue-
Okay,
The little blue one-story building that's on that corner.
okay.
Yeah, yeah, people lovingly call it the former hospice building. Do you want me to put this back up?
No,
Okay,
that's-
it's kind of in the way, I know, sorry.
Yeah.
Maybe we can just put it back here now.
Does anybody have any questions? I need to turn my mic back on. Does anybody have any questions? Jesse?
Thanks for coming, Renee,
Hi, thank you, Jesse.
and thanks for responding to some of the neighborhood's concerns. We appreciate that. I'm curious on behalf of the neighborhood whether any more consideration has been given to building up the existing parking lots for additional parking. The question was asked at one of the neighborhood association meetings about whether the only reason it wasn't being built up was cost. And I'm referring to the two parking lots north of Division on either side of Davis Road. So everyone
Other
looking at
side
their
of
map.
Davis Road. So is that the where Penn Street
Penn
is?
Street one.
So that's here.
North
I'm-
Division
um,
and what?
North of Division, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
On
that's-
the map, it's on top
On
of
the map,
Division.
yeah.
Yeah.
On either side of
Actually-
Davis
it's actually
Road,
east,
so
yeah.
Davis.
adjacent to Division and adjacent to Davis. They're right next to Medical Plaza 1. And then to the left, across David Road, is another parking
Both
lot.
of those.
Yeah, so you're saying, have we looked at adding structured parking in either of those two locations?
Correct.
I don't believe that we have. Structured parking, like you mentioned, certainly implies a lot of cost. There's certainly costs associated with that. There's also probably development standards for structured parking that would be right along the street frontage, which would be difficult to manage. I don't know what those are off the top of my head, but I believe there would be. There's certain development standards for what you can have fronting the public roads, and parking structures are not always the nicest thing to have right along the roads. The other thing too is that when you're talking about the development of the MOB on the west side of Division Street, you want to have the parking sort of continuous around that building, so that when patients and staff are parking, that they're not having to cross Division to get to that building, and so that's why the inclusion of those properties are included in this request. Anything else to add?
However, you mentioned that part of the reason you're requesting that for parking is for the main hospital, which is crossing Division. That
Right,
doesn't
it's-
kind of mute your point that you just said.
Yeah, I think it's to be sure people don't park in the main hospital parking lot, just for that very purpose, and then try to cross Division to get over to the medical office building.
Oh, so you're
Yeah.
not addressing the lack of parking for the main hospital. You're trying to make
yeah.
it, help it not get worse.
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
yes.
Any other questions?
Actually, I had
Oh,
a
Jesse,
separate
that
one.
wasn't done. Sorry.
You mentioned, Renee, there were those buildings on 15th Street are non-historically significant. Do you just mean by that they're not designated? Can you talk about the age, what they're like? You know,
The 30s?
Correct, they're not designated. I don't know the year they were built. Do you?
I do not.
We can check on that and send something back to Laura to include in the minutes, if that's all right.
Sure, thanks.
Okay, yep, we will check on the,
20s to 30s.
when those houses were built.
Okay. Joyce,
That parcel you were just talking about on 15th and Division
can you make sure and have the mic?
is, that parcel you're talking about there on 15th and Division. So what I'm hearing, you're thinking about putting parking on both sides of the building.
Correct, there would be some parking between 15th and 16th, And then potentially parking on the south side of 15th as well.
Between 15th and 14th, that, the dotted line?
The dotted line.
And the pink dotted line, that's also parking?
No.
The pink dotted line reflects,
Oh, part of the building?
well, it reflects a change in zoning. So those
Well,
But I just want to know, where are we putting parking lots and where are we putting buildings?
yeah.
Can I show you on the big map?
I would love that.
Okay. So, so potentially, this area here would be the medical office building and supporting parking, and then this area could be potentially additional parking. This is a vacant lot right now.
So the building and parking,
Okay. So this whole piece here would be building and parking, and this would be potentially.
All right. Any other questions? Oh, sorry, Harris?
How large is the building going to be?
So in the original master plan, like Renee mentioned, there were 2 medical office buildings approved, and both of them were between 20 and 25,000 square feet for a total of up to 50,000 square feet. The detailed development plan that we would work on this project would be between 30 and 35,000 total for the one.
2-story or?
2-story.
I got another question.
Karen?
So just out of curiosity, is this going to be like MOB 1 and MOB 2? It'll just be space available to lease, or is this for a particular specialty?
Want to answer that?
We don't have anybody obviously designated yet, but it's primary care. We have a large group practice primary care, and then specialties and rehab services.
Oh.
So it'll be much better access for our rehab patients.
Okay, I don't get to vote, but I vote yes. I hate trying to get into rehab services.
Yeah,
And I've had to do it a few times.
And then,
Yeah.
and then it could be various specialties.
Okay, wonderful.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, well, we thank you for coming to us. We appreciate that very much. Thank you very
and
much.
we'll get the years those houses were built to Laura tomorrow, if that's okay?
Yep, I'll
Okay.
forward it to you on an email.
Thank
Sounds
you.
great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, now we have some public comments, and we'll start with Tom O'Brien and Kathy Hogan.
Good evening, CIC members. Tom O'Brien, resident of Oregon City.
Really? President of Oregon
I don't
City.
remember voting for that either.
I'd like to begin by thanking all of you who have given countless hours of your time to improve the livability of this city that we all cherish. I'd also like to share my thoughts regarding the current state of affairs in Oregon City. Some city leaders have demonstrated they don't wish to listen to our citizens. The following example illustrates my point. The Hazel Grove Westling Farms Neighborhood Association has worked closely with the city for several years to eliminate a city-owned eyesore in our neighborhood. The city owns 2 adjoining parcels of land that had been designated for future use as a city park. The city, in violation of city code, was allowing weeds and blackberries to grow out of control, reaching heights of greater than 6 feet. Drug activity was taking place. Neighborhood pets were being killed by a coyote. As a result, 63 neighborhood volunteers donated in excess of 400 hours of labor to change this public nuisance into a welcoming, usable gathering place within the neighborhood. It is now used for walking and enjoyment by the neighborhood. A consultant was hired by the city who worked closely with the neighborhood to develop a concept plan for a future park. The 3 sessions were open to anyone in the city who wished to share their views. A final concept plan was agreed upon, and it was presented to the City Commission on May 12th of this year. With no prior involvement with the Filbert Run Park, our Mayor, Holliday, once again showed his disdain for the citizens by objecting to the well-thought-out concept plan. He insisted that a portion of this small neighborhood park be set aside for parking. The mayor did not bother to ask if adequate parking already existed. Had he done so, or if he had taken the effort to drive by the location, he would have learned that 54 on-street parking spaces already exist immediately adjacent to the park. The mayor's attitude towards citizens discourages efforts on their part to contribute in any meaningful way. The mayor has little tolerance for what the citizens desire. He seems to believe that he is an expert in all matters. Thus, it has become obvious that I am wasting my time attempting to represent those citizens who live in the Hazel Grove Westling Farms neighborhood. Therefore, effective immediately, I resign from the Citizens Involvement Council, and I've also resigned from the board for the Hazel Grove Westling Farms neighborhood. Thank you.
I'm Kathy Hogan, and as of our meeting on July 16th, I resigned as co-chair to the Neighborhood Association. I have to, unfortunately, go with the treasurer and continue to do that. Otherwise, they'll take $5 a month out. So I'll continue to put, or the treasurer will put 25 cents every year to keep it active until we find new chair people. And as effectively now, I resign from this committee, and I'm totally in agreement about the park and the attitude of this city. Thank you, and thank you for giving it all the time to this endeavor.
Thank you for all of your hours of service, both of you, and I'm sorry to hear this. Steve Van Haverbeek would like a minute.
Steve Van Haverbeek, a resident of Oregon City, and somehow it was brought to my attention that two legacy maple trees in Waterboard Park had been attacked by somebody wielding chainsaws and had pretty much destroyed the trees. The person who brought it to my attention lived just down the hill. No idea how I got on the mailing list. However, I brought it to Scott Archer's attention, who is now making efforts to clean that up. However, I wish to point out to people that the first thing that they should do is call the police. Somebody was destroying public property in a public park, and they should have been brought that direction. And that was, Scott had also indicated that. So just from the standpoint of concerned citizen, let's take care of our city and make it as livable as possible.
Steve forwarded.
Whoa.
Well, Steve forwarded this email to me and to Harris, and I just want to clarify something. One of the things people don't realize is you can file something with Go Request on behalf of someone else. Sometimes people are comfortable reading email. They're not comfortable going online and going to Go Request. And I did this for several people when I was working for the chamber. You go ahead, go to Go Request, fill everything in with their email information, and let them know that they'll be receiving an email letting them know what has gone on with it, because Go Request is wonderful. And it's just, especially older citizens aren't necessarily comfortable interacting with it, but they're good at reading their email. So, that's another avenue when it's not something where you have to call the police, it is something you can do if you get contact from your neighborhood association. If you
You're
should
well
call the
aware of that.
police,
Thank
call
you.
the police.
It's not an emergency. If it's an emergency, please do dial
Yes.
911. This is more of nuisance issues, or that's what GO request is for. But if it's an emergency, please do use the police.
She did say that she had heard the chainsaws as it was occurring. So
That's unfortunate.
unfortunately, she did not suspect that that was what was going on.
Sure. Why would you? That's a reminder, the perfect plug for Neighborhood Watch.
Yep.
What neighborhood association does that fall in?
Rivercrest.
Rivercrest.
Rivercrest? Okay.
It's at Waterboard Park.
Right on the edge,
I didn't know which one it fell into.
before you fall off into McLaughlin.
You could fall right off that edge.
You fall into
And
McLaughlin.
fall into McLaughlin. Bryce, I mean, Brian?
I was just asking the location of this event.
Yeah, we don't, for those not familiar with where Waterboard Park is.
Well, I know Waterboard Park, I haven't been going through the whole thing lately, but I was just wondering where it was.
Must be the upper side, because she said it was
On
right
the
below
upper
her house.
side, so it's above.
She kind of lives on
Along
Promontory,
that-
so it must be a
She lives on
But-
Center.
center, okay. But she's well up at the top.
But it's
so-
directly behind her place. Of course, you can't get to her place off of Center. You have
Mostly
to.
above Center Street and below Ogden.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
properties that are
Okay.
on the riverside of Ogden, then Waterboard Park is below that. So
In order to get to it, you have to take the walking trail.
Yeah, there's a trail that parallels the cliff.
Yes.
Okay, so I did notice it.
Oh,
I didn't realize that but yeah, somebody cut down trees in there.
I'm curious, did it appear they were cutting it for improvement of view?
That's the suspicion when Scott looked at it, that they might have been making sightline for something.
We've seen that a fair amount across Oregon City on park property and other non-park properties, but that's kind of a standard that is unfortunate that happens along the bluff.
Yeah, call the police. Thank you. Which leads us right to you, John.
Yeah, thank
You're
you
up.
for that. So I'm going to make a couple announcements, and then I'm going to jump into this Myers Road Extension Concept Plan. So I got a notice from TriMet, and we'll try to get this up on our website if it's not already there. It may already be there. I can't remember. But TriMet is working on their service enhancement plan. Has been reported to this group in the past and continues to happen. But with the Orange Line coming on service fairly soon.
September, wasn't it?
Yeah, September. They are providing what they're calling hub-to-hub shuttle from the end of the Orange Line to downtown Oregon City. So on September 16th, they're holding a board meeting. They're asking for testimony from supporters. As you know, TriMet has done a fair amount of enhancement for service between downtown, from the Orange Line to Oregon City, and then through Oregon City as well. So the meetings they hadn't established a location yet, but they're talking about 9 a.m. They say they're usually held in downtown Portland. So I don't have a specific location yet, but if you're interested in testifying, I think reaching out to TriMet's website would probably be the best way to get there. Placeholder would be September 16th in Portland, and start time at 9 a.m. Usually they say testimony's heard about 9:30. So keep that in mind. If you have anything good to say about some of their service enhancements, I guess if you have something bad to say, you could show up too. But it seems like they've been working pretty hard to better serve Oregon City. The other thing I wanted to mention is we have been talking to mostly the business community about holding what we're calling a collaborative forum on Oregon City system development charges. The business community has been pretty interested in our system development charges. So September 24th, we're going to hold a forum. We're thinking it's going to be a 3-hour forum, so it's going to have our financial consultant, John Ghilarducci, probably our finance director, and myself all having different technical sessions for that. But I suspect it's going to be focused more on commercial than residential. And if you're an existing resident, you probably don't think much about SDCs. But it's been a divisive topic at times, so feel free to come for that. I'm not going to say much because we've had several presentations, but a lot of Public Works projects underway right now. Our website is pretty up to date. If you're curious about a particular project and you want to look at the website, or if you have a specific question about it today that you want to ask about, I'd be happy to answer them if I can.
Jokingly, we heard just leave town for the next couple weeks because it's going to get hot and heavy.
No, you do not need to leave town. Our
downtown.
Yeah, we spend. That's right. Just go downtown.
Go downtown.
Because we don't have much going on construction wise in downtown. Finally. But a lot of other places, and particularly the McLaughlin neighborhood, there's a lot of construction activity going on. So
Ride the elevator.
Yeah. So again, I don't want to spend too much time on that. I did want to mention it though. The other thing I was going to mention was, I don't remember if I mentioned this before, that this is always a big deal. You know, you folks always get excited about when they get a new police dog, right? So I'm not here to tell you that they're getting a new police dog, but we are getting a new street sweeper, which is
And it doesn't need a vest.
So I think Oregon City does a fabulous job with its street sweeping, but this will be a brand new street sweeper, and that means it's more efficient. It's like getting a new vacuum. It picks up dirt. That's better. Keep your eye.
Go the opposite way they've been going. Isn't that what they tell you when you get a new vacuum? Then vacuum backwards.
Vacuum backwards. That doesn't work with me. So let me start with the Myers Road Extension Concept Plan. This is something that's been ongoing, but we've just kind of now taken this out on a roadshow. So we met with a couple of the neighborhoods. We're going to be meeting with the Natural Resource Advisory Committee, the Planning Commission, and hopefully the City Commission. This is another one of these concept plans that kind of helps tell the story about what we want that roadway to look like in the future. And when we say Myers Road, it's the piece of Myers Road that's yet to be built. So I'll show you a mapping of it, but this is a new piece of Myers Road. We don't get to build new roads very often. Myers Road, it's not the first time we've talked about extending Myers Road. It's been a planned project for several years now. It's in our transportation system plan. It's in the regional transportation system plan. It's really extending Myers Road from Highway 213 to High School Avenue. It's a minor arterial, and it will help provide yet another connection to the Clackamas Community College. So Clackamas Community College, as well as the school district, they've been partners in the concept planning that we've done so far. It's a collaborative effort that requires some funding by all three of the jurisdictions. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Campus Industrial Enterprise Zone that's out there, and we'll show you some of the Natural Resource Overlay District and the BPA corridor that's in there. So this map is from our aerial photograph. So this is an aerial photograph of the area, of the overall area, 213. Do I have a way to? I don't know if I want to point, or do you have a? Can I do something with it?
You can use this on the screen.
Doesn't this? Does that show up on your screen?
No.
No. Okay. So this is this kind of works. So if you turn around, you can see it. So this is Highway 213. This is Myers Road. This is the high school, Bellfields. This is where the high school is proposing to build a transit facility for their buses.
Proposing? I thought it started today.
Well, I think they had a groundbreaking, what do you want to call it?
They had a ceremony.
Ceremony.
Oh.
No, it hasn't started yet. How do I just say that?
Okay.
It just has not started yet. It's not
Okay.
ready to start. This is the Parks property right here, and this is the community college. So you're familiar with Douglas Loop, which takes you around the community college. This purple line, both these purple lines and this black line really don't exist except for in our concept planning. They show up as, the purple lines show up in our transportation system plan as a conceptual connection for Loader Road. for this one here. And then this road here is Myers Road. And then the Regional Transportation System Plan takes another stab at that. So some of these concept lines that are kind of out there in no man's land show up in our long-range planning a little bit odd. But the idea is that we need connectivity between Glen Oak Road and Beaver Creek Road, and we need connectivity from Myers Road to Highway 213. So the other green swath is what we're showing as a natural resource corridor. There's wetlands in here. We didn't find much in the way of wetlands here because it's been disturbed over the years, but it starts up again at this end of this parcel and then moves across Highway 213 into what's called Two's Pond. So some of you may be familiar with that. The other thing we're looking at is the BPA corridor. There's BPA power lines across through the site. And so all those things and many other things have been in part of our consideration. As I mentioned, the Oregon City School District bus facility, that's in a perfect world, it would have been great to get this corridor plan done before the school district came in. That almost never happens, but it does show it does show where these corridor plans would be helpful, because we've spent a lot of time kind of negotiating, I would say, with the school district and the parks, which would have been much easier done, after the corridor plan was in place. The Glen Oak Park property is obviously something you're familiar with. And then the Clackamas Community College master plan, I thought that was what was going to be presented tonight, but no, it's the hospital. Okay, so has the Clackamas, I can't remember, have they presented the master plan?
Next week.
Okay, so you know that the community college is updating its master plan as well.
They're
kinda
coming
like
to
that.
some of the neighborhoods.
Yeah. So we've been talking to them. This enterprise zone is something that's kind of new to me. I think it's been around for a while, but it's highlighted in green here. And some of the areas, including the project area about where the pointer is where our Myers Road corridor project is. So those parcels out there are all zone campus industrial development. And that comes with a fair amount of potential for jobs. So it's another driver for why Myers Road should be built sooner than later, as it opens up land that would be relatively shovel ready for good jobs. And I'm going to move to the next one. So we've Public Works, Parks, Planning, we've all been kind of collaborating on this. We're all on a project team. The Oregon City School District has been participating, the community college, and so is ODOT. And we're taking this road show out to share with the neighborhoods. I will be honest with you, it's one of those projects that doesn't have a lot of opposition. It's other than working with the property owners who this project would cross. Other than that, the community college would really like to see it happen. The school district would like to see it happen. I can tell you the Caulfield neighborhood would really like to see it happen.
Gaffney Lane was very
Gaffney
excited.
Lane got a presentation on it. I heard good things there as well. So, some of the things that the community college is proposing with their front entrance and some of their master plan changes includes an enhancement to their transit center, which TriMet is also kind of collaborating on. So TriMet hasn't necessarily been on our team, but they're interested in our project. We've talked to them about potential stops, those kind of things. So they're yet another stakeholder. As always, these kind of projects, we do a fair amount of transportation analysis, and we looked at the 25-year design for this. The good news is there's lots of analysis going on in that area between some of the things that are happening through the enterprise zone and some of the other developments that are being proposed out in that area. So we've got lots of good traffic data out there, and if we could just put the gates at the city limits so we could hold out all the county traffic, we might be a little better. We're not there yet. So this is really conceptual, but it's basically how we connect the dots between what the school district is going to be required to build the Myers Road through its frontage and along the park's frontage. That's a condition of approval. The other piece that's a condition of approval of the school district, and I forgot to mention this, but Loader Road, so back to my pointer here, and if you could turn around for me if you're not. So Loader Road, we've made some decisions about Loader Road. If you remember, there was a line that showed Loader Road coming over this way. And we felt like a good portion of Loader Road was already built here with High School Lane. The Parks is going to be conditioned to build kind of the second half of that. And the school, while they don't necessarily need access to Loader Road and weren't really excited about building a public roadway through there, I heard things like foul balls and landing in the street, those kind of things. But we still think that's the right corridor for Loader Road, as opposed to trying to bring it down through this natural resource area, move it over here. So that's another condition that the school district will be needing to meet in, I think we gave them a 5-year timeline. So we think that's a win-win for the city as well. And then the other features on this map that I'll go ahead and continue to point at will be, this is a representation of a connector street to the community college. And the community college is talking about some real improvements in this area that would essentially make that kind of a through connection. So that would be helpful. So this represents Myers Road, and I'll show you what the street section of Myers Road looks like. Again, we're trying to avoid these power line conflicts. We're also trying not to dissect big major parcels much more than we have to, so that, again, they leave some room for industrial development. And then this little dotted line here represents a shared use path. Again, if you've paid attention to what we're doing with our transportation system planning, the idea is a loop path. That's a small segment of the loop path that would someday, people on bikes or pedestrians could get all the way around the city with a loop path. And that's just one little piece of it that gets it up onto the community college's loop trail. And we've been talking to them about enhancements to that, and we'll keep working through that as their project develops and as we see these projects develop. But the idea would be to get that loop trail over to the Loader Road extension, and then Loader Road goes all the way over to the Beaver Creek concept area. And that's kind of the alignment of that loop trail. It takes you all the way around. I think it goes a parallel with 213. So that would be a nice facility once it's in place. So we're proposing a piece of that to be built in this project.
You got a question, John?
Oh, I'm sorry.
John?
Yes.
Will that include a bicycle lane?
Good question. So let me get to that real quickly here. So in this section of Myers Road, we're going to try something that we don't have in Oregon City, which I think is going to be fabulous. But I'll wait to hear your opinions on this. But this is the cross section. So if you're looking east on the new section of Myers Road, we've got essentially 3 12-foot lanes. So there'll be a center turn lane with limited medians. It's kind of like what we have on Myers Road in front of the high school now. So landscape medians along some of that center turn lane, but also provisions for utilization by vehicles in that center turn lane. Those 12-foot lanes are pretty wide, but we've got a lot of bus activity along there between TriMet and the school district. And then we're showing buffer, which is you may have seen this in some jurisdictions where they're adding a wider buffer that's striped that makes that bicyclist feel even that much safer. And then on one side of the street, we're showing parking and no parking on the other side of the street. So it would be, for me, I see it as it gets the Glen Oak people who might want to venture across 213. They'll have a new signalized intersection at 213 in Myers Road. They'll be able to get to the high school or the community college with a much safer bike way than what we have currently. There'll also be these 10-foot planter strips for stormwater treatment and just general landscaping, and then sidewalks. There's some flexibility within that cross section, but that's generally what we're shooting for. We looked at several intersections through our traffic study. The big change here is at number 2, which is at Myers Road and Highway 213. There'll be new signalization. The medians that are there now will be, so if you're headed southbound on 213, they'll take out the concrete median and put in a turn pocket there that you could get into to turn onto Myers Road. And then also as you come really across the point, this is kind of a bottleneck right here in 213 because there's a large culvert there and kind of a fill. But right out as you come out of that, the proposal is to build a second through lane there, and then have provisions, maybe not build right now, but have provisions for a right turn lane onto Myers Road. So we're thinking some phasing here, but most of the improvements will happen now, or when we get approval for this. Again, stop controlled intersection on only the high school or the community college access road. This would be a four-way stop. And, we're continuing just because we're not sure. We kind of think we're going to do some enhancements here, signalization-wise, just to help until we can actually see this project built.
John, question on this one. Is that green line, that High School Avenue, Loader Road that you have there?
Yes.
Is that the current High School Avenue that goes to the parking lot at the high school?
Yes.
That green line?
Yes.
So where would the new Loader Road go?
Right there. So
Well,
it would be on that same alignment.
Okay, but where is it going to meet up onto Beaver Creek Road?
Oh, right. So that falls off the map, but, somehow, again, that Loader Road isn't part of this concept study, but we did enough to confirm that that's the right intersection.
Okay, so kind
So-
of pointer, okay.
Right there. And then this is Beaver Creek Road. So Beaver Creek and Loader, I think, are right here. And so, the question I have is, does it line up there, or does it go in a different direction?
I guess maybe I need to see that other screen you had with that where Loader Road was shown. That was one of your early screens. To really see how that.
Loader's only on the north side of Beaver Creek now, right?
But we want to meet up with it on the south side.
And it will.
And that's.
Yeah. I don't have a drawing that shows that, unfortunately, but the full intent is to make sure we're aligning. It may mean that there's a new alignment of Loader Road. If you remember that Loader Road comes in at a weird angle.
It's terrible.
So, do we realign that? Long term, there's a signal at that location, so it would be, or a roundabout, I can't remember which, but long term, there'll be something different there. But we're just really on this concept plan, we were really wanting to kind of nail this down so that we didn't have to, do we have to build an intersection here or here? How do we deal with that? And so we've essentially, with the adoption of this plan, will land on Loader Road and High School Avenue being the route of connectivity. So I think I've talked about all these things. I think we talked about Myers Road being a 30 mile an hour roadway. So, how this happens, obviously the school district's moving full steam ahead. Next will be adoption of this master plan, and, hopefully, within that 5 to 10 year range, depending on whether or not we need to get grants. Right now, grant cycle is for 2018 to 2021, so it's really quite a ways out. So I'm really hoping we can find a local way to fund that as opposed to trying to pursue grants. But it's about a $4 million project, so we're not quite sure how we can do that, but we'll keep trying. And am I going backwards again? No. With that, I'll wrap it up. Sorry, that took longer than I thought.
Was that the 12-minute version?
Did you guys get it in 12 minutes? Did Martin do it in 12 minutes?
I don't think so, but it was actually pretty close.
Yeah. Well, that's it for me.
All right. Tony.
All right.
Willamette Falls Legacy Project.
So, I'm just here tonight to give just a quick update on where we're at with the Willamette Falls Legacy Project. As you're maybe aware, we recently, in the 2013 legislature, we were able to secure $5 million. That includes certain requirements in order for the $5 million from the legislature to be appropriated. One of those was securing an access right by the public agencies as well as a financing plan. We were able to secure both of those. We were able to negotiate a donated 120-foot easement from Mr. Heigerken along the entirety of the Blue Heron property, as well as $900,000 towards the design and engineering of the Riverwalk, and a commitment to 20% of the long-term operation and maintenance. We also secured a grant or an easement from Portland General Electric on the dam itself, getting out to the dance floor and the Riverwalk. In the last legislative session, we went back, and with the help of our local representative Brent Barton, we were able to secure another $7.5 million for the project, putting it us a little bit under $20 million right now dedicated for the Riverwalk. So I think most of you are pretty familiar with the site that's up on the screen right now. It's outlined in red, approximately 23 acres, a little under 23 acres. Right at the south end of our downtown, and then this little area right here looks like a backward Z is Portland General Electric property, of which we also have a public access easement out. So essentially we have access rights from 99E through the entirety of the site out to the dam, along the intake lagoon, and then continuing south on the property to towards Kenema. You're well aware of the partnership. We still have our partnership intact right now. Oregon City, Clackamas County, Metro, the state of Oregon through the Regional Solutions Office, and then also working with the property owner, Mr. George Heidgerken, who did purchase the property. You're very well, you've probably heard us over and over again talk about the 4 core values. These will continue to be our values moving forward on the design and engineering of the Riverwalk. When we do talk about the ability to use historical and cultural interpretation, the public access, the healthy habitat, and the economic redevelopment, we see those as when you talk about the historic and cultural interpretation, it's an amazing asset that we have along the river that really does make this a unique site that does help tell an amazing story that most jurisdictions don't have that ability to tell. A picture of what was downtown Oregon City. Now, we like to show this picture taken from the West Lynn side. You have the old woolen mill where the foundations are still there. But one of the things we do like to talk about is just what the shoreline used to look like. And when we talk about the opportunity for habitat restoration along the property, it's not only improving for migratory birds and shoreline habitat, but as we've industrialized and developed, we've kind of straightened out the channel. We've lost what they call this roughened edge along these basalt cliffs, which would allow areas for migrating salmon and lamprey to get in those little eddies behind there and rest as they're migrating up the river, up and over the falls. So every opportunity we have to roughen the edge as well as improve the habitat would be benefits that we see being implemented as part of the Riverwalk itself. We've talked quite a bit about the buildings that were identified for interpretation on the property. The main ones are kind of in the burnt orange red there. The D-Ink building along Main Street, its sister building, Paper Machine number 4. Going across the street, you have the Woolen Mill Foundation. Even though it's not a structure, we still believe that the foundations are important for the interpretation of the site. Adjacent to that, you have Mill O extending out over the river, and then at the very end you have the Hawley building right up against the PG Dam, about a 4-story cement structure there. Which isn't to say that there aren't other resources on the site that get interpreted, whether it be the boilers, the old flour mill that's in the bottom of Paper Machine number 3, the digesters, Paper Machine 1, the Horton Sphere, everybody likes to refer to as Sputnik. We could really imagine a situation where some of those secondary and tertiary buildings get kept just because, let's say you're in the Hawley building. It's a relatively compact building with cement floors and whatnot. So instead of breaking holes in those cement floors and breaking up your foundations in those floors to put in stairway, HVAC, elevators, ADA, seismic, you could actually utilize the buildings around those to provide that vertical access and HVAC that's necessary to serve those buildings as they're redeveloped. We talked quite a bit about riverfront access. One of the main things we heard during the visioning process was how excited folks were to provide public access. There are many opportunities along that little over quarter mile of the property and then extending out to the falls for viewing, interpretation, habitat restoration, access to the river, both for ADA and then secondary and tertiary trails that get down into that habitat and along the riverway. We talked quite a bit about the habitat. We really have two different systems out there. Above the falls, a little bit calmer before you go over the falls, and then below the falls, much rougher water, much more movement going on down there. And then in that upper basin, that's where they historically drew their water from. They had about 100 cubic foot per second water right on that property for their paper making throughout the decades. And since they discontinued that upper basin isn't having water circulated through it again. So you have a habitat opportunity there. How do you move that water? Improving the water quality in there as well as dealing with the temperatures. So multiple opportunities for habitat improvements along the Willamette, both below above the falls. The framework plan, most of you have seen this hopefully. What you see in yellow we consider kind of high and dry. You're out of the floodplain. One of the main things that we did show was this orangish line. It's always, no matter how we're developing this, is making sure that we provide that solid public access from 99 through the site, along the river, and out to the falls. This could go through buildings, over buildings, under buildings, and that's what the next steps are really going to determine and really drive. Okay, how do we've got this schematic design, we've got this idea of connecting points A and B. Now how do we do that? So what did we do? We went out and did a national search. We had 14 amazing applications submitted throughout the country, many people with international experience. We interviewed 3 groups, and we were able to award to the group of Mayor Reed, Snøhetta, and Dialogue. Will be doing the design and engineering for the Riverwalk over the next 18 months to 2 years. We're currently in contract negotiations with them. Hope to have that completed in about a month or so. And then we actually, if you haven't picked one up, little flyers on the back for Rediscover the Falls. We're going to have a gentleman named Randy Gregg. He's someone we've worked with at University of Oregon with their architectural students. They actually did a studio on the property last year, came up with some great designs and ideas and thoughts for what could happen out on the property. But on Wednesday, September 9th, from 5:30 to 6:30, and then the actual discussion is from 6:30 to 8:30. We'll have Carol Mayor Reed from Mayor Reed, Michelle Delk from Snøhetta, and Alan Boniface from Dialogue will be there with being interviewed by Randy Gregg. So it'll be an opportunity for the community to come out, be introduced to the consultant team, and kind of hear some of their thoughts, their process, their ideas, how they go about, really working on projects like this. And so that'll be up at the Portland Art Museum. And so if there are additional questions, just let us know. It's on Rediscover the Falls, and like I said, we do have some flyers in the back.
Tony, this is Rediscover the Falls in Oregon City in downtown Portland.
That's true. Yes.
Well, that's my question. Why is this in Portland? I mean, it's even a different county. Isn't Portland like Multnomah County and we're in Clackamas County?
Well, I think it's an opportunity for the regional partners to work together. Being able to utilize the Portland Art Museum for what we imagine is going to be an extremely large event. We don't have a facility that's going to be large enough in Oregon City to support the event that we're having. So it was a great opportunity to utilize an amazing facility.
We don't have one yet, but we could have
correct. So until we do, it's hard for me to hold one there. So in cooperation with our partners, we felt it was a pretty good venue to be able to hold such an event like this. Much like the framework plan that we did, we really thought that the public engagement component of that went very well. And so we're looking at, utilizing that same public involvement opportunity of going to, neighborhood associations, farmers markets, PTA groups. Instead of holding 3, 4, 5 open houses and having folks come to that, it's really going to be staff, design team, representatives going out to each of those smaller groups and getting their feedback, getting the ideas, much like we did last time. And it's going to be regional, just like we did last time. This is a project of state significance, if not national significance. And so we'll continue to build support all throughout the state on this project, which will mean going to multiple areas of the region.
Are you going to be the person giving the talks and going out and doing this? Are you one of the people?
Oh, yep.
How? Okay.
Yeah, we had we have multiple, not only city staff, metro staff, state staff, county staff, who, much like last time, will be responsible for getting out and about to wherever we can. Yep.
Faith, did you have a question?
Yeah, is it too soon to ask, maybe, do you have a timeline on when the Riverwalk, that's what the question I get asked.
Sure.
People are saying, when is the, do you know when the Riverwalk?
Sure. So we had the original roughly 10 million, and then we were able to receive another 7.5, which we have 2 years to come up with a significant match for and some other things. With the 10 million, we felt that we could do the design and engineering for the Riverwalk and then start construction of phase 1. Not, in our heads, we can kind of see 3 phases: 99 to Mill O to the dam, and then the dam out to the dance floor. And so our goal would be approximately 18-month to 2-year process for the design and engineering, and then begin construction of phase 1. Correct. Mm-hmm. Yep. And so what you see on the slides are just some of the drawings that Mayor Reed, Snowhead, and Dialogue brought during the interview process. So there was an initial, there was a 2-step process. They responded with what their qualifications were to handle a project of this type. And then once it was narrowed down to the 3 firms, we asked them to create what we called idea boards, how they would approach a certain part of the property. And what they were looking at here was, along the waterway of just how do you, the solid white line that you see is roughly 50.3 feet, which was the height of the 96 flood. And so just to give you some perspective of where that's at on those buildings from the riverside, and then how do you start to bring people through there and utilize the opportunities along the river with some of the existing infrastructure and buildings that are there. And then continuing on down through the site and then out to, this is actually just a rendition that they have for out on the dance floor. Usually we're up on top on the metal grate. This would be actually a view from underneath that grate where the old powerhouse used to be underneath there. Once again, just conceptual ideas. In working, as we begin this process, these will be some of the questions that we have in trying to figure out what the best route is, what's feasible, what's the best way to provide that in terms of ADA access, aesthetics of it, long-term maintenance and operations of it, flooding concerns that they're going to be. So taking all those into consideration and, creating the world-class project that we think is necessary and deserved. Along this section of the Willamette in our downtown. So a little bit of a revamp to the website, Rediscover the Falls, but once again, opportunities on there for Facebook, e-blast that you can sign up for, or if you just want to go visit the website, we'll be continuously updating that with events that are happening, where we're at in the process, plans that have been constructed, getting feedback from that. So. With that is all I have on this for tonight.
Rita?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm wondering if anybody has ever given any consideration to the height of the water of the 64 flood.
Mm-hmm. I'm pretty I think 96 was higher.
It was 64.
64 was, but not much.
Okay.
Oh, it was.
No.
The falls was level.
It wasn't 64 too.
Yeah.
I think that what's
That's
interesting
what I mean.
is, as part of this process, we've hired a group to look at some of the hydrology out there. The flooding, the water movement. There's discussions about marinas and whatnot, and but really one of the main things is, since some of those floods that we've had early, 1900s through 64 through 96, one of the amazing thing has just been the manipulation of the river through dams, and what that's done to some of those flows that do happen there. Because the 96 flood, we actually saw flooding on the site, which we think was in part to do with it actually breaching over by the railroad and coming around through the site rather than the Willamette backing up into the site. So those are things that we're looking at. Yeah.
Joyce?
So during First City Celebration, you were having tours at the site.
Yes.
Can you tell us how many tours were done and how many people went through the site?
Yeah, we had, what did we do? We had over 200 folks 200 citizens come through the site. I think we ran 13 tours on Saturday morning, about 15 people per tour. Some little, we had a couple of no-shows, but for the most part, filled up. Folks were excited, happy to be out there. A lot of folks. It was interesting. The first time we were at the First City celebration, and a lot of folks were like, "What is this? What's this all about?" This time around, a much larger percentage of people who knew the project, had been involved, had followed it, were knowledgeable about it. So that was really good to see. A lot less first-timers, and a lot more folks who've participated or knew about it or been on the site actually before. But we did quite a few of folks who'd just heard about it. They're over in Tigard, Tualatin, up in Portland, up in Vancouver, down in Canby, Salem. We had a wide array of folks who just heard about it through news or website, or and were able to get a ticket and come on up.
So Tony, I do know there was a photography club from Eastern Oregon
Yep.
who came over, and they were upset because not all of them were able to get tickets to go. But visitors from Eastern Oregon over here,
Already.
Barbara, thank you.
Sign of things to come.
That we worked pretty hard at getting those people
In.
herded into the tours. And had a good time, and I appreciate being able to step up and being one of the followers on one of the tours.
Yep. We do, we definitely do appreciate. We had several volunteers who came out that morning to help us with registering folks, making sure everybody had, proper footwear, proper signatures, and actually helping us.
Old enough.
Yep, rounding folks through the site, which is hard. We're trying to move people through pretty quick. We only had about a little over an hour to get them through. So, quick tours.
Wow.
There were over 200 people, weren't there?
Correct.
Yeah.
I didn't get the official count, but we had 13 tours, and almost all of them were booked with 15 people.
Yeah.
So
That's great.
It was a very good turnout. And of course, I managed to get my last group all the way out to the end, right by the falls, and it poured. I had my rain coat, but there were a couple of folks who got a little wet while
Welcome
we were
to
out
Oregon.
there. But that's some of the excitement of being out there.
Let's get a different view.
Yep. So, like I said, we'll be kicking this off September, October of this year. I imagine we will be back in front of the CIC as well as multiple neighborhood associations throughout the 18 months to 2 years while we're going through the design and engineering. So just look forward to hearing the comments and getting the ideas.
All right, thank you, Tony. Laura will now talk to us about the Planning Division review process.
Exciting.
Woo! Okay, make this exciting.
Yeah.
This is something we have a lot of questions about in my neighborhood because we just had a developer come in. So this is, I think, good timing.
All right, so what we want to do is at the CIC meetings, we want to make sure there's a little bit of education about what we're doing in the planning department and the development review process and how it works. So folks can watch us on demand on the website and also live as well. So today's talk is just about how we decide what the review process is for development. So just in the planning department, there are lots of departments involved in the review process. There's building that looks at the structures, and there's public works looks at stuff as well. So today we're just talking about the planning department, which I think is the best department. Okay, so everything we do is run by the Oregon City Municipal Code, which is a pretty good read. If you ever want to read it.
Good. I don't know that I'd use that word.
It's great. It's very important. So the code contains lots of things, and one of the things that it contains is all of our development standards. So how tall buildings can be, what they minimum standards for what they look like, how many parking spaces, landscaping, that kind of thing. And then it also tells us how to review these developments and what project should be by which review type. And so we call them by different types. So type 1 through 4. Type 1 is one that's not very discretionary, so it would be like if you were to do a lot line adjustment, does everyone have their minimum lot size? Yes, no. Do you meet your setbacks? Yes, no. it's really more mathematical than anything. So type 2, 3, and 4 start to get a little more fuzzy with the development criteria. So we have criteria, and everything we do is based around these development criteria. We'll talk to you at a later time about how we create the development review criteria. But for now, we're just administering it. So type 4 would say, you know, does it fit with the comprehensive plan, and these sort of large generic criteria that are a little bit less specific.
And I think, you know, type 1 is an administrative decision, so you won't see those as your neighborhood associations.
That is correct. So again, we're just looking at, so for example, if you wanted to do an addition to your home or a large shed or something, you just come on down to our office and you fill out your application forms and give us your plans, and we look at it and, you know, does it meet setbacks and stuff like that? If so, we can kind of sign off on it right there on the spot. There's no public involvement because there's really no criteria that is arguable about it. It's really more mathematical than anything. So we do it over the counter. There's some certain processes that may take a little bit longer. Maybe we write a staff report for some things like lot line adjustments, but other than that, we just sort of sign the application and move on. So not any discretion, very easy. Again, sheds, property lines, different things like that. Then there's the type 2. So type 2, we look at the criteria. The criteria's got a bit more discretion than the type 1, so maybe not as mathematical, but pretty close. You know, how many parking stalls do you have? We have this calculation of how you calculate it. Did we calculate it correctly? How big is your parking lot? How many trees and shrubs do you have? All of these things are in our code, which is why our code is so long. So our code is kind of long because it gives you a clear path of what is allowed, and then also an opportunity to be creative. So we're talking about sort of the clear path of what's allowed. We look at traffic impacts in type 2. So that starts to get a little more discretionary. You get people like traffic engineers involved. And so that's why we do public involvement for type 2, 3, and 4. So with type 2s, we have a pre-application conference. So say you want to split up your land. You have a really big piece of property and you want to sell off the back to somebody. And so you come into us and have what's called a pre-application conference, which is an initial research meeting. So basically, you're showing us your plans and you're paying us to research those and tell you any problem that we foresee. We take your application and we email it out to over 20 different people and agencies. We want to make sure that we don't have any conflicts with your development proposal and each of these agencies, and that we also don't have any interdepartmental conflicts as well. So, you know, we send it to the fire department and you name it, and we probably send it their way. Then we have a meeting with you, and it's just an informational research meeting for you. You haven't turned in anything. Then at that meeting, we'll tell you sort of what sort of public improvements or sidewalks and street trees, that kind of thing, that are required. And if you feel good about the project, then you go forward and you turn in the application. When anyone turns in an application, we have a state law that says we have 30 days to review it for completeness. We're pretty quick. We think we take about 20 or so, which is pretty good because it goes to so many different agencies for completeness and people. So once you have a complete application, that's when we do our public notification. All type 2 and above applications go on our website. We put the complete application on our website, so you'll see everything that they've turned in. We mail notices to property owners within 300 feet. The state law, I think, is 100 feet. I think it's 100 feet. We also email it to different agencies and jurisdictions. We mail it to the neighborhood association chair for every neighborhood association and to the chair of CIC. We post signs on the property, so we make these big blue striped signs that you'll see around. You may have to stop and like park and get up there and read them, but it doesn't matter. If you call us and say, I saw a blue sign, we'll figure it out. So you don't even have to read it. You can just call us and ask. And then we take public comment, and the public comment is really directed towards the review criteria, right? So we look at the certain list of criteria. Does it have enough windows? Does it meet the size requirements? Yes, no. If it meets all of those criteria, it's approved. If there's one it doesn't meet, it's denied, if you can't get it to meet it. So staff makes a decision. It doesn't go to any public hearing in the type 2. Anyone who commented in the application or the applicant can appeal the decision. Decision appeals go to the city commission.
And I think what it's important about these type 2 is we consider these are staff level decisions. Everything we do is obviously appealable to the city commission. But one of the things that we is really hard for us as staff is we'll get comments like, I don't like how the house looks. I don't like that my neighbor is going to develop his property. And what's difficult for us is that while we're sympathetic to those concerns, they're not legal reasons to apply to a land. And so really it's trying to teach the neighborhood associations and the CIC that there are criteria. We're not out there just negotiating in the back of a napkin what we think should or shouldn't happen on a property. If an intersection, well, we talk about these traffic engineers, there are adopted methodologies for how we determine what the impacts are. Is it A, if it's a B, if it's a C level of service, it's approved. As much as it may seem that, this is going to add 12 trips along McCord Road, if it doesn't cause the intersection to fail, it's irrelevant. I mean, it's not something that we could legally deny on. We would lose in court. And so that's why it's really important, as we're reviewing these and as citizens are wanting to comment on these, it's addressing those criteria, especially on type 2s. Because like Laura was saying, you're going to see when you go to a type 3, which is planning commission, there's a little more subjectivity. There's interpreting policy statements. Versus type 2, is the street 53 feet wide, which is what's required for a local street? Yes. Does it have 32 feet of pavement? Yes. Does it have a 5-foot sidewalk? Yes. Does it have a street tree every 35 feet? Yes. I mean, those are the type of that we get to use to approve or deny something.
So Tony, where do you find is that just in the code? People would have to go. Like if someone wanted to send in
comments.
Right.
And
you don't want us to say it's ugly.
Yeah.
Where would we get the
So
information?
on the notice, under criteria, it will list out the sections of the code that are applicable for the type of application you're reviewing. So for, let's say, a new building on Malala, you're going to have 1762, which is site plan design review, 1752, which is parking, are going to be the main ones. And they'll be listed under the criteria. So you could go to those sections of the code and see the approval criteria, for, whether it's, a building, it needs to have 60% transparency. It has to have a 2-foot offset. And if it has those things, it's approved. If it doesn't, then you have a reason to object or raise in writing concerns. You can think of type 2s are kind of, we did our comp plan and we talked about the vision that we want for the community and the policies that we want. And then you refine that by writing a code. And the code is what implements the comprehensive plan, these ideas. But essentially, once you've written the code, especially for type 2 applications, which are staff level, you're kind of saying, as long as you're in between these sideboards, as long as you meet these criteria that we've all agreed to and we've adopted, you're going to be approved. It's when you start to get up into type 3 and type 4 where you've got conditional uses or variances from the code or zone changes. That's where a lot more discretion comes in, and that's why it's in front of a planning commission or a planning commission and a city commission. So I think it is one of the things we struggle with the most because we do have a lot of type 2. Home Builders Association in the state of Oregon is extremely strong. A lot of the regulations that we are required to do at the local level are straight from the legislature, whether it be the 30-day completeness. We have to issue, once we deem it complete, we have 120 days to issue a decision. That includes the appeal up to the city commission, and we, as the city, don't control that timeline. We have to meet that, or the applicant has to grant us an extension. We can't just say, hey, sorry, we're not going to get it done for 200 days. they would sue us and take us to court, and they would be allowed to build whatever they've submitted, regardless of if we've reviewed it or not. So there's a lot of process that's built into this system that's difficult for even us sometimes. We work with our attorneys quite a bit, so let alone neighborhood associations and the general public who see these 2 or 3 times a year, right? So hopefully by providing the resource with the staff, you can call, you can ask those questions. We can try and help you through that process. But like I said, type 2s are tough ones. We do run into these quite a bit.
And because there's that short timeline or a certain timeline, you have to get your comments in within a window. So once we deem it complete, there's a comment period, and then the comment period ends. So after it ends, we finish the staff report because we take your comments into the staff report, and then we make a decision. So if you get your comments in too early, then they don't really go in. If you get them in too late, you also sort of miss the boat. So you have to meet this window. The window is required to be at least 2 weeks. It's normally 3.5 or so of a time period. Then the other thing is for type 2 reviews, say you split your property in half, that's a type 2 process. Say you split your property into 150 lots, that's also a type 2 process. There's no range and scale. It's based off how discretionary the criteria is. So the criteria is the same if you split it into 4 lots or 400. So the review process is the same. So we don't really see a lot of larger subdivisions like maybe we used to sort of when we 10 years ago or more, they used to be a lot bigger. But the point is that there is no different review process based on the scale of your development. If you're building a new shopping center, it's the same as if you're splitting your property in 2. So it's all the same process, again, based on the amount of discretion in the decision. And our timelines are the same to approve it as well. So the example of some type 2s are if you're subdividing your property, if you're doing a minor variance, and maybe you're just doing a little thing for the code. We have a list of exactly what minor variance means. If you're building new apartments or condos, new commercial, again, these things can be a different scale. It could be a large commercial complex, or it could just be a 100 square foot addition to a store. So the scale ranges quite a bit. Then we have type 3. So type 3, a little bit more discretion in the approval criteria here. So one of the criteria is that it has compliance with our comprehensive plan for most of them. And our comprehensive plan, again, has these large theories in there, like diverse housing or efficient public services. So you have to, the criteria is a little bit more discretionary, and that's where they go to the Planning Commission and they have a little bit more leeway on the decision. Are the characteristics of the site suitable for the proposed use? I mean, sometimes you can kind of see different points of view on how those criteria are met. So that process starts the same with the pre-application conference, that research meeting, so people kind of want to know what they're getting into before they get into it. Then we have a 30-day review time period, and then someone submits their application. This one we also post on our website. We email it. We mail it to properties within 100, to property owners within 300 feet. We post the big blue signs on the property. We also notice this one in a paper, so it goes in general circulation paper. And then we have a public comment period. In this case, the public comment periods are generally a little bit longer. We have a requirement that it's got to be at least printed in the paper for 21 days before we have a hearing, so it puts it out sort of a bit longer than those type 2 processes. Staff makes a report, but instead of making a decision, it's a recommendation. So we have a criteria listed, then we have findings on how we think that criteria is or isn't met, and then we do that for 100 pages or so. Sometimes they're kind of long. And then we move that forward through the public process. Everything goes on our Planning Commission hearings or Historic Review Board. Most of the type 3, again, will only go before Planning Commission and Historic Review Board. They make the final decision, and then that decision can get appealed to the City Commission.
Can you give us an example of something that goes through this?
So it would be like a church. That's a good question. It could be a church surrounded by a neighborhood, or a school surrounded by a neighborhood. So we list certain uses as allowable for conditional uses, like bed and breakfasts or something. Maybe they can be compatible in a residential neighborhood, but we kind of want to take a really good look at it, because we don't want them to sort of take over a residential neighborhood or something. A master plan would be in this category. So the county and the college, they have hospital, they have long-term plans for what they want to do, and we sort of want to look at it in a cohesive way over the long run, and we want sort of the community to kind of look at it a little bit closer, because normally they're bigger properties and things like that. Or a major variance, so say I just can't meet some approval criteria and I need a different reason. I need an exception for just me. Everybody else in the city has to meet it, and I'm different, and here's why. So, really why. That goes to the Planning Commission. So Historic Review Board, if you build a new home in a historic district, you'll have to go before them. So that'd be the same type 3
So
process.
I noticed like the bus barn had to go to Planning Commission. What triggered that? Like if we're looking for
Master plan.
examples.
There was a master plan for both the high school site as well as the bus barn, the transportation facility as well.
So the high school did a master plan, and it included the bus facility.
Earlier?
No.
This time?
That's this time.
Oh.
Amy, is this thing on? Okay, I can tell you that I attended that master plan meeting for the high school, and there were 3 members of the public that came, even though it had been noted, there had been signs everywhere at the high school. They had spoken to the neighborhood association, so that the neighborhood association rep came and spoke, and there were just 2 other members of the public that came to that meeting, which really surprised me, because that was a big plan, and it's really going to affect the traffic.
Yeah, I don't remember that one. I came to the Planning Commission meeting about it, but I didn't.
So show up to those meetings.
So then we have type 4. This is the most discretionary that we get. So if someone wants to do a zone change or something like that, we're looking at state goals, again, our comprehensive plan. Can we even support it with our public facilities, that sort of thing.
Blue Heron would fit into this one.
The zone change for Blue Heron. Right. So it starts out with the same process, and you go to Planning Commission, but in this case, Planning Commission, so staff makes a recommendation, it goes to Planning Commission, then Planning Commission also makes a recommendation to the City Commission, and the City Commission is the one that decides. So they have to go through sort of different levels with the staff report, and then Planning Commission, and then, or Historic Review Board, and then the City Commission as well. So this one is not appealable to the City Commission because they're the final city decision maker. All of these City Commission decisions can be appealed on through the Land Use Board of Appeals and into court systems. So there's sort of a never-ending chain of when you can appeal it to. But these are the most discretionary. They have sort of the most flexible in criteria, annexations, different things like that. Changes to the comprehensive plan, which is this guideline that we're always comparing everything to. So they're a big deal, and so they require lots of public hearings. But our timeline is legally still the same, so we have to do it quickly. That's it.
And then the one that we did left, so we're describing these types 1 through 4, which generally are dealing with one property, one project. There's a 5th type, which is called the legislative action, and those tend to be multiple properties. It could be the Beaver Creek Road concept plan, the South End concept plan. When we come in and do mass rewrites or edits to the code or the comp plan map that we sponsor, those are called legislative actions, and the difference being they're not targeting specifically one property. They are citywide in nature. So you're rewriting your policies for economic development or for sewer. So they're a legislative action. But they essentially have the same hearing process, just some of the timelines are a little bit different. And
They go through like a type 4 process?
It's very similar to the type 4, except we call it legislative because it's not property specific. I think one of the things, there's a requirement we call raise it or waive it. So whichever type it is, you need to bring it up. If you don't bring it up, you don't get to bring it up on appeal at a later date. So
Your issue.
If my guys at a type 2 level and you submit your comments in writing, and you don't talk about the width of the street, if you do appeal it, you can't bring up the width of the street at a later date. You have to raise it at the initial hearing or in writing at the initial evidentiary opportunity. So you can't just add it at the very end in all cases except legislative. So legislative is kind of a free-for-all.
The term raise it
or waive it.
Waive it.
If you don't raise it, you've waived it. And like Laura was saying, after the city commission, whether they make a decision on a legislative action, a type 4, on an appeal, then the city commission's appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals, Land Use Board of Appeals to the Court of Appeals, Court of Appeals to the Supreme Court. So that's your judicial review in Oregon on land use issues.
And you'll also notice on the bottom of every notice that we send, there's a little thing in a box that says that neighborhood associations will get a free appeal if they vote on it.
So if something were to happen in McLaughlin, if they took it to the McLaughlin Neighborhood Association on the Carnegie Library and said, we want to appeal this decision, and if a majority of them...
Because they had already raised an issue, though?
Correct.
Okay.
If a majority say, yes, we'd like to appeal it, they bring that in writing with the minutes, and then we waive the appeal fee on that. So, administration of the code, it's chapter 1750 in the Oregon City Municipal Code. It lays out each one of these, which type of applications go through which process, what our noticing timelines are, the dates that we have to allow. So, like I said, this isn't just stuff that we just make up on the whim and do. We are required by code and state law on many of the actions that we do.
And there are some attachments to the agenda, and they're back there as well, that go through in more specifics, what type of applications or what file types, and then the process for each file type as well.
Jesse, you had a question?
Yeah, thank you. And thanks, Laura, for the presentation. Tony? I wanted to ask a clarifying question. We were talking about the hospital as an example, and when they were presenting, they mentioned that they needed to redo both their master plan, and they mentioned a zone change. So is that a type 3 or a type 4?
When you have two things that are different types in general, then they get put together to the highest type. So a zone change is a big deal, so it's a type 4. So whatever other changes they want to make would go together as a type 4. A master plan is normally a type 3. There are some minor amendments you can make to a master plan that are less. But what they're talking about is a type 3. So if they have a type 3 and a type 4, then it goes to the type 4. So we want to make sure in all cases we always, over notice than under. We always do sort of worst case scenario.
So the entire package goes as one unit instead of separate
They
processes.
could request to separate and run them concurrently on different tracks. We tend to try to discourage applicants from doing that just because it's hard, trying to tell the whole picture of what's being proposed instead of getting partial information at different decision-making bodies. Sure. But if someone really wanted to, they could come in and say, nah, I want to separate. And we very rarely see that.
And they can also go through and do a zone change, and then come back and do the master plan, and then come back and do building the building. So building the building is a type 2, or it should be a type 2. So they have a type 2, 3, and 4, so they can do them all together. It sounds like at this point they want to just do the master plan and zone change before they work on the schematic for the building, which we see often because they want more certainty that they want to put more money into the schematic of the building. So again, they'll sort of all go together if they're submitted together and they're okay with them running together. Normally it gives, again, a better picture to Planning Commission and City Commission, who normally might not be as comfortable just doing the zone changes. They don't know what it's going to be.
Thank you.
Joyce?
So as I'm driving around the city and I see those blue signs out, okay, those were only for type 3 and type 4?
2, 3, and 4.
2, 3, and 4.
And then again, they're also posted on our website. The whole application is on our website. Just give us a call. You can just chat with us and say what's going on in my neighborhood or what's,
Okay, I want to ask you right now, what's going on in Hilldale neighborhood, but it's county property, the corner of the Beaver Creek Road where it runs into
Warner Milne.
Warner Milne.
Oh, that's
There's
the
a
fun
blue
spot.
sign out in front of the,
Renee wants to hear you.
the blue sign that's out in front of the medical offices for the county. There's a sign, and of course the writing is too small, and so I'd have to stop.
Is it
and-
kind of crumbly? Is it kind of old?
No, actually,
No, it's a new one.
I just noticed it today. Something new?
Give her a call tomorrow.
I will send you guys an email with the link to where you can find all of our development and review applications online, and we can specify where that one is. That one is a bit of a brain teaser. Normally we know them all off the top of our heads. They've been talking to us about something else that shouldn't have a sign up, so I don't know.
Yeah, they haven't submitted yet, but
Okay.
you know, one of the other things we've been doing, we've been working with our GIS department to hopefully come up with more of an interactive mapping system as it relates to land use and construction projects, so that, let's say you're driving down, Beaver Creek, right now, if you go to our webpage, it'll have, the description of each of the projects, but not necessarily an easy map
Sometimes
that's
it's hard to figure
interactive
it
for
out.
location. So our goal is to get to a point where you'd be able to go to a map and, that, let's say there was something at the corner of Beaver Creek and Warner Milne, that would then have a bubble there that you could just click on, so you could look at the map for projects as well as the list. So that's our goal as well, which would help to make that a little easier. But you got us stumped on that one. I know we've had discussions with them, but I don't think they've turned anything in yet.
Any other questions regarding this? Thank you. That was very helpful. Approval of the minutes. Did everybody have a chance to look over the minutes?
We had one change that was emailed in regarding comments from Kathy. Pull them up. So on page 3 of the minutes under the round table, just to note that Kathy was not reporting for CENA. She was for Hazel Grove Westling Farms.
All right, would someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes with that change?
So moved.
Wow. All right, guys, wake up. It's our turn again.
I'm
All right.
going to approve the minutes with the correction.
Okay.
Jesse, second. All right. I see Tony is gone.
Yeah.
Linda?
Cleaned out this side of the room. Yeah, approve, yes.
Dennis?
Yes.
Amy?
Aye.
Joyce? Aye. Faith?
Yes.
Rita?
Aye.
Jesse?
Aye.
Barbara?
Yes.
Harris?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Gary?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Would you guys have huge objections to if we treated those more like a consent item? Like we do for planning commission and city commission?
Please, please, please.
So what that would mean was we would essentially run it like a consent. So we would say, does anybody have any changes that they'd like to make? If nobody has any changes they'd like to make, we could adopt it by just consent. And so essentially we would say, all those in favor? Aye.
Yes.
Anyone
Oh,
against?
yeah, let's
No?
do that.
And you
Great
move a little
idea.
Quicker.
I've never understood the.
All in favor of doing that? Aye.
Aye.
Motion passed.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Great idea, Tony.
No, just kidding. So we'll try that next time.
Okay. National Night Out, tomorrow night.
Yes.
Linda,
Need help?
We
Please.
need help. We need someone to pick up the tent. I do not have a car, a truck, or anything to pick it up. Public Works, we need that picked up. If someone has a pickup
a
or
pop-up
van.
trailer, the pop-up tent and the table and chairs.
Yes, and that we can pick it up and then take it back the following day, Wednesday, to do that. We need someone to do that, and we need more help. We've got about 3 people signed up to help, and we need more people there. We have the information here. We've got the board. We'll have the board here. We have things to pass out. Thank you very much. Where the flyers are in there to pass out. But it takes about 2 people at a time to be there, because if someone comes up, you want to have someone else ready to talk with them as well.
It's great to have 3.
Great to have 3, and sometimes, go get something to drink, take a walk, do something. Yeah.
Speak about waking up.
So do we have more volunteers or someone to pick up the tent? Thank you.
Where do we pick? Where does it need to be picked up at?
I can email you the
public-
address.
Okay.
Public Works.
Yeah, see Laura after, because she'll need a time. They would kind of like an
And that would be
estimate of what
time.
time.
We've talked with Chris. They're going to open the doors at 3:30 to put up the tents, and then they're going to start it at 5:30, I believe, was the information. So what time would you want to pick that up and have everyone there to help you put that up? If we pick it up at 4:30, what would work for you? What's your schedule like for tomorrow?
Closes at 4, don't they?
They have 4 o'clock's fine.
4 o'clock. Okay, 4
Actually,
o'clock,
parks,
and we'll be
but
meeting
they're
up
open.
at the Mount Pleasant then at 4 o'clock.
And then you let him drive right on, I think.
They do let you drive right on, yeah, which is perfect. So we'll just kind of, and
From the Warner
they'll have the
Brothers side.
spot sign. There's no assigned spots. When you're in, you get the next spot that comes through there. 4 o'clock. Who else would like to volunteer? I have
I'll be
Amy,
there.
Faith,
Come on, guys.
Amy.
I could work
Can you
in
come
the
part-time?
booth at
Oh, part-time is perfect. We just need bodies to do it because, you'll want to go,
I want to look around.
yeah, you want to take part
So
of
is it just a drop in and help for a
But
while?
drop in help, so
But
if
if we
we
knew
could
what
do
time,
that,
that
yeah.
would be good. Oh, yeah,
5:30
Yeah.
to,
8:30.
5:30 would be good for Rita.
so Rita, 5:30?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can someone-
Yeah, that's fine.
Can someone else come at 6:30 and help? Come on, guys.
I will.
No one's coming? Who said that?
Joyce.
Joyce. All right, 7:30.
Joyce is 6:30.
Can someone come at 7:30? Come on, guys, what are you doing tomorrow night?
Watching the dog demonstration.
Oh,
Are you going to
okay.
be there the whole time?
Yeah,
Yeah, and so am I.
okay. So
All
there's
right.
Faith
So we'll have 3 people most of the time.
And
The
Linda.
last hour.
All right, Gary, can you come back at
And Amy.
8:30 to pick up the table? Okay.
So it'll be a table, a pop-up tent, and 4 chairs.
Okay.
And it'll
Do we
be
need the chairs?
with
I
our
was gonna bring my
Parks
own chair.
Department, and then you could just return it the next day. They won't be open at night.
I can bring
at
a
night.
chair if you want to.
You
You
can-
choose.
I have a camping
Tell me what
chair.
times that I can,
Okay.
how
I'll
early can I go?
If you were just there to put up the tent, and that would be wonderful, and maybe if you could come at 7:30 or so for the last
Can't get
hour and
back
help us
on.
to take down the tent. Okay.
I don't know if we need the chairs. Do we need the chairs?
You need the
Well, we're
chairs.
going to need the chairs. You really need the chairs. So if they have them, great.
In case
And
we
if
have
you
surprise
your own,
helpers.
bring it. Yeah, because
Well, I
sometimes
mean,
people.
Last year, I brought a camping chair.
I did
which
too.
is more comfortable.
I did too.
But I never sat down.
Yeah, we never
I
sat
did.
down anyway.
I did sit
Because there's
down.
people going through
I
constantly.
did sit down. Yeah.
All right.
So I think we have Rita, Joyce, and Gary, and then Faith, Amy, and Linda.
That'll be great.
Good.
And watch ahead because we're going to be asking for help at the safety fair in September. And that is a blast.
Yeah.
That is, you're going to want to come to that to see the
And
events
that's
that are
what,
going
10
on.
to 2, I think.
Would you like
September
to-
19th.
The next meeting is on Labor Day, so would you like to ask for help now?
Oh, so we're not going to have a meeting in September.
Do it via email.
Okay.
I can
Yeah,
send out
but-
an email.
It'd be better to do it now, don't you think?
Does anybody know right now that they can help us at the safety fair?
It's a Saturday, September 19th, from 10 to 2. I think.
Right, and Faith, you had said you could head that up. Can you still do that?
Well,
Just-
I'll volunteer and be there. I don't know if I want to boss anybody around.
Well, just like Linda did.
Just like me. And see
I'll
what- see what-
volunteer
see what I
for that
did.
too, but I'll need to be reminded by the world.
Okay, so Rita will help. I'll be there. Is anybody else going to be there?
Do we need to have a
the tent stuff all picked up again, maybe I could volunteer to do that.
Okay.
I'll just keep it in my house.
There you go.
They need it back.
Rose, but then you'll be
Okay.
positioned on where to go.
Joyce, did you say you thought you could be
I
there?
said, I'm not sure of my schedule yet, but I'll try to be there.
Okay.
Yeah, we need the same things for that.
Right. Okay, so if you could send out an email and then have it on there to contact Faith, is that okay if she gives out your email, Faith, and then
Yeah.
we can all let you know what times, and then you'll be able to get back?
The location, too.
Okay.
It's at the Safeway.
I thought probably it was.
Perfect. I'll send out all the details.
Okay. That would be great.
Great.
For our roundtable, we've had, I know it's no surprise at Tower Vista, we don't have anyone right now that is chair and running that association. Hill and Dale recently at their meeting asked if we would be interested in having them Tower Vista join the Hill and Dale Association. So I kind of wanted to get your feedback on that. And then tonight we also had the Hazel Grove Westling Farm resignation. So at this point we don't have any meetings that'll be going on there. So one of the things I had thought about, if you combine, did you mean to just have them come to your meeting? You know, like if a land use issue came up, which they've been kind of popular lately.
Well, we would need to, does the mic work yet?
Yeah.
Okay, we would need to have probably this committee's approval if we were going to use Tower Vista funds when Hillendale has a meeting, to send the postcards also to the Tower Vista neighborhood so that they would be welcome to come to our meetings at the same time. And yeah, if there were land use issues, instead of necessarily having to bring them here to the whole group, they could bring them to the combined Hillendale Tower Vista.
Yeah, my concern with in the past when we had neighborhoods that weren't functioning, if you have a land use issue and you guys hear it in Hillendale and if no one came.
But if no one from Tower Vista.
Because the Gaffney Lane one, and it wasn't happening. Hillendale kind of helped and asked, and at the meetings, no one was coming. And so finally, Chris Wadsworth and William Gifford had our own Gaffney Lane meetings, and people would come to that. They didn't come to the, and so that was.
So what I'm hearing you. So
I just don't know.
If there was a Tower Vista land use issue, then the land use chair of the Hillendale Neighborhood Association would call a meeting in the Tower Vista neighborhood. Is that what you're asking for?
I don't know. I'm just throwing out thoughts.
Yeah,
but
I
that's
need
a good
to get
thought.
approval from that
at the
person.
Ainsworth House, where they used to, where they would normally meet or something. It's just a thought.
This is just temporarily until somebody.
When CIC first started back up, Buena Vista merged into McLaughlin Neighborhood Association. So are you actually talking about a merger, or
No, just
are you
temporarily
talking?
helping them out till we can get some leadership back in Tower Vista.
So
meeting's closer to that.
everyone would be invited to a meeting the same night. You'd become basically a Hillendale / Tower Vista Neighborhood Association.
Yes, and that's not for land use issue things. It's just our normal quarterly meeting.
It's easier for people to come there than to come here, Instead of having their land use issues here, and that's more prohibitive, I think, for the Tower Vista people to come here than to just go to the Hillendale.
And not just land use, for
anything. It's closer to their homes. We're right there.
Our quarterly meetings where we have awesome speakers coming.
It saves the speakers one meeting. I'm not hearing process here. So, I mean, and I had said in the email, we can't tell you what you can or can't do. So we can say as CIC, we think that sounds like a really good idea. But it's lacking a little process and clarity, especially for those speakers. So is there anybody still active in Tower Vista? No. Or anybody interested?
No.
There were two names. You had given me one name, and I hadn't heard back from that person, and then you said somebody else called, but they never contacted me. So at this point, we don't have...
So there's no one really to speak for them to meet with you to say, hey, let's do this way.
Right. And also with the new, now with Hazel Grove Westland Farm, we have the same issue. So before I knew about the Hazel Grove Western Farm was going to come up with the same thought, I've had a thought of creating a CIC ad hoc committee that would possibly call a meeting for that neighborhood association, and just like they had when they had their quarterly meetings in the past, three members or 5 members of this ad hoc committee would go to that neighborhood and run the meeting for them, trying to get someone to step up. I mean, that was a thought that I had. I didn't know. I wanted to talk about that too.
Is it worth? So what I'm kind of hearing is, could we, as a functioning adjacent neighborhood association, utilize some of the non-represented neighborhood associations funds to try to include them in the meetings that you have, just so that they feel they're involved?
Yes, that's what we're saying.
Right, and so now we're going to have the same issue with Hazel Grove Westling Farm. So, which I
maybe
don't mind, which I
want to
think is
invite them in,
easier
I
than
don't
just
know.
trying to
And you know what we
absorb
would do
them.
at those meetings, if people came from that other neighborhood, we would try to tell them, to organize, to
So I think-
get their own thing going again.
I think I'm kind of hearing two things. So folks are okay with, and I would approach this as kind of a temporary thing. Like the goal is to get that neighborhood association functioning again.
Yeah.
When is your next general meeting?
Maybe we could try to write up some policies that we could bring back and discuss next time, because, how this is going to, what we're accomplishing, so that someone doesn't come in and go, oh, they're just taking over the neighborhood association, or they're just taking the money. And I think the goal here is to just improve citizen communication when you're lacking it in a neighborhood association, which I think is what we should be doing.
Our next meeting's October 6th.
I do hear what Amy's saying, and it would be nice if there was a core group from here that would call the Tower Vista meetings, that would call the Hazel Grove Westling Farm meetings, and meet in their neighborhoods with them, come up with the speakers and the agenda, and go on and see if you can get them to come, and more power to you. I'd love to see that happen. I was really surprised when Tower Vistas fell off so rapidly, because when I attended their meetings a couple times, they were well-attended meetings.
Yeah, so are Hazel Grove Westling Farm.
It's just finding that leadership.
So I wonder if it's kind of two things. One is the immediacy of picking up when we have a vacancy and no one's stepping up. And then the second thing is there some type of a committee group, volunteers that, essentially it is to go recruit, right? To get in there and look, we're going to do it we're going to agree to 3 meetings, for whatever we agree to, and after that, then it's okay, how do we address this then? Are we going to shut it down? Are we going to absorb them? I think those are legitimate questions to have.
Precedence was that South Bend and Hazel Grove Westling Farms for many years did meet, have joint meetings. And even when they had leadership in both neighborhoods, they still held joint meetings until really they got enough attendance that they decided to split into 2 separate ones again, because there were so many people that attended the meetings. So
You have a meeting in October. Do you have any other general meetings for the year?
not this year, the next one will be January.
Okay. What South End, is that something you'd be interested in inviting the Hazel Grove Westling Farm members? Obviously, you have a meeting in August. That one's not going to work. Do you have another meeting this year? October?
We could
Are
step
we
up.
just too far off? I mean, Kenema?
Yeah, you guys, you've got South End in between you, so
Okay.
I think it would be.
It should be adjacent.
Yeah.
That'd be better.
Yeah. So that would either be Tower Vista, which is defunct, or South End.
Well, and we meet in the same
Mm-hmm.
building that Hazel Grove did, so.
That's
Okay.
cool.
So what if?
Frequently the same night.
What if we right now at this meeting approved that Hillendale could use some Tower Vista funds to send the postcard to notify them of their October meeting and have a combined meeting, and that South End could use some Hazel Grove Westling Farms if something hasn't happened before their October meeting to invite theirs to theirs, and then at our October meeting we can discuss where we're going from there, and maybe if anything's come up in the meantime.
And then the agenda item should be that you, that you try to recruit people that are, you find out where the people live. And
If you could have 2 different
attend the meeting.
signups, that would
Yeah,
be great.
yeah,
And
2
then you
different
would have a
sign-up sheets.
feeling too.
And Kathy has offered to sort of train up the next person for Hazel Grove Westling Farms too. So if we have any,
And I'm sure Todd would be willing to help if
Mm-hmm.
possible. And
Right.
as chair of the Gaffney Lane, I'd be glad to help. And
so I had been sending all interested parties just to you, since you're the CIC
Mhm.
chair. Should I continue to
Mhm.
do that? Okay.
So,
Okay,
do
so-
you want us to take a whack at a policy, or do you just want to talk next meeting about it?
well, at this point in time, we just need to decide if, because we're not going to have a meeting before postcards need to go out.
I think we're already saying go ahead and do it.
So if
but
that's
I-
okay, we need to vote if that's okay to use those funds for those 2 meetings. So all in favor of having South End take Hazel
Well,
Grove
not
Western
just-
Farm, just inviting them to the meeting, their meeting.
So not just 2 you're saying for those 2 organizations for the
October meeting.
indefinite- just-
No, just for the October meeting.
So you're going
They're
to vote every
Octobers.
time?
At our next meeting in October, we're going to come up, we'll try to come up with a
Okay.
policy to
Okay.
go in the future. Steve, did you want to weigh in on a?
I've got one comment about it. The neighborhoods that are no longer meeting, do they have bylaws?
Yep.
Those bylaws indicate when meetings would take place.
Yes.
Most of them do. So those bylaws should be adhered to when planning a meeting, even if they were trying to put 2 neighborhoods together, probably not on the same night. So.
However, with proper notification, they can change the meetings. That's in the bylaws usually.
And they do.
Within a little bit of leeway. So.
Well, their meetings are on the same night anyway, usually.
A lot of times our meeting is the same night and the same location, so
Mhm.
as the Westland and Hazel, yeah.
So theirs is
It would
easy.
work out well with us.
Yeah, that would work easily.
Yeah, and Tower Vista, they actually had been moving their meetings around fairly regularly, so there's yeah.
They didn't
Follow the
Yeah.
bylaws.
follow the bylaws.
And that's what frequently happens, like when Gaffney Lane was inactive. I mean, yes, you need to follow your bylaws, but at first you're just doing anything you can to get back in.
Yes, and
into
I
sync.
remember going to the meetings, trying to assist in getting people back together and starting up
Right.
again.
That's why I would like to see
Kicking
not very
and
many
screaming.
combined meetings unless it was, like you said,
Yeah.
in line.
Trying to find somebody willing to volunteer.
It's hard enough to
You
get
notice
people
that
to
it's
the
always the
meeting.
usual suspects.
Well, and this is also a situation where they've already been reactivated, went dead again, and honestly, I'd like to see a policy that after X amount of time, there is a merger. Because how many times can you try to reactivate? And-
I think we can certainly add that to the list of things to discuss.
In October.
Yeah, I think there's pros and cons to that as well. How long are you in the timeout box till you get to come back?
And how many times?
Okay, speaking of involvement, as we go, we're back to I tried to do roundtable, we kind of got off board there a little bit. But I would like, when you start talking about whatever you had on your agenda that you were going to mention tonight, I would like you to tell me why you got involved in the neighborhood association that you're involved in right now. What caused you to get involved? And just a quick, doesn't need to be a 20-minute story, but just give me the main, why did you get involved? And then what are you doing to get others involved in your neighborhood association? How are you trying to pass along that same drive? So I'll be listening for that as we do our roundtable, which we will start over here at Linda.
I got involved in Kenema's neighborhood in 1997 when I moved there. They came through with flyers, and I had lived in the Hillendale neighborhood prior. I had never, ever attended a meeting there. But I thought, okay, this is a new house, this is a new life, I'm going to do things different, and I went. I've been involved ever since. And when I started, we had about 7 people that would come to our meetings. At our meeting that we had last September, or last month, we had 25 people who signed in. So we've got people in, we're trying to get knowledge, education, and keeping things calm and quiet on an even keel. That's what I'm trying.
Okay.
Not always easy.
It's not easy.
That's Kenema.
That's Kenema. A new place will be rock.
Continuing soap opera. Myself, I became interested in the organization because the area is rich. It's got a lot of historic character and culture. It also has non-historical structures as well. And it's this eclectic mix of different kinds of people who live in that area, and they bring to it a very unique place to reside. It's also geographically situated, so it's a very small place in that, like, you really do know what's going on there. We started the neighborhood watch before we had a neighborhood watch. Most people are pretty familiar with who's in and out. We have 2 parks. We have the old Kenema Park. We have the new Children's Park. It's very active. It gets more busy each year, and I think it's a very interesting place. I think we're blessed because we're small, and we're also blessed because we have like a low crime rate, and I think that's been echoed by our police liaison.
So why did you get involved?
Because I like that mix of diversity and the people that I live around.
Okay,
My neighbors.
got it.
Yep.
Okay. And did you have are you going to update at this? We're doing our update at the same time.
We have a family picnic coming up this Saturday, so we're planning for that and looking forward to the attendance.
Is that your neighborhood thing?
Yeah.
Do you want to say where and what time and?
Oh, you want me to mention that? It's
Yeah, that'd be
5
great.
to 8. It's on Saturday, August 8th. Anybody's welcome.
Which park?
The Children's Park.
We have reggae music.
Cool. Okay. Anything else, Kenema?
No.
Okay. You said you had 23 people here, or 25, I mean, sorry.
25 that signed in, and not everyone signed in.
Great.
I think that's good.
Okay. Brian.
Okay. I got involved because I was asked at the formation of the neighborhood association, and I was one of the tiny handful of actual residents, so that's really why I was asked. Plus, the person who organized it, who was actually a real estate person, knew me, so being basically public spirited, I agreed to do it, and that's why I'm here. So, but I don't have a lot to report on. We had a small meeting a little while ago, and we'll have another one in October, hopefully a little bigger.
So what are you doing to promote getting involved in Two Rivers?
Basically just the meetings. Don't have. We were thinking of doing a special meeting that would, open house style thing to try to attract more people. Do a little bigger push next time.
Okay, great. Bill?
I became involved in the South End Neighborhood Association shortly after I moved into my house. Gentleman who was running for mayor at the time was campaigning door to door and asked me if I had any idea that the city was planning on building a parking lot behind my house in what had, at the time, been just a natural area surrounding the water tower. And so figured I'd better start showing up to the neighborhood association meetings. A sex offender and a teen challenge later, or those sorts of things seem to spur a lot of neighborhood attention and activity, and so that's what we've been doing ever since. As far as recruiting new neighbors, it's just trying to get topics for our meetings that will attract attention, get people to show up. Free hot dogs. Thursday the 20th, if you're in the area, for the first 30 people that show up. It's our next meeting at Chapin Park, by the way. So it's listed in the meetings as being at the Methodist Church, but it is at the park.
Okay. So can you let Katie Durfee know about that to get that updated on the website if it isn't already?
Sure.
Okay.
I can do that.
And that's at 7 as a normal
Yeah.
meeting schedule?
Yes.
Okay. Anything to report on your meetings, or did you have anything, just that?
Nothing really super exciting lately.
It's summer. Gary?
The reason I got involved was John Williams wanted to know if I would be interested in serving on the steering committee of the South End Neighborhood Association. And so at that point, I didn't have any reason why I couldn't. So. And I don't mind doing that kind of stuff and volunteering to help do things. I can do that. Going out and talking to people and inviting them is a little harder. The recruiting process, but it is really easy to do when you have a service project. So we've been doing the South End cleanup, and we've had 2 different crews. Most of us the ones have been coming anyway, but at least we're getting to know each other a little more, and that's worked out really well. And I'd like to report that the Elks Club painted the restrooms at Chapin Park, and also the little pump house, and that looks really nice. And we're working on a project to replace the flagpole. I haven't got it there yet, but we're working on it.
He's got the crew down, though, on the South End cleanup. I think the last one was accomplished in less than an hour.
Yeah.
So.
Any fun things to report that you picked up? Any new?
There's some. If anybody is in need of, they look like floor mats for your car. I can't. As I drive down the road, they showed up the day after we cleaned up. So I haven't stopped. I was going to stop and pick them up, but I haven't done it yet. But if anybody, it's right where what's that road comes down on the south? Is it
Sunset?
Sunset comes down just down the hill from that on the right hand side. You should go down if you want to pick up. Take your life into your hands and want to pick those up. We discovered that on that road it's really dangerous. And the traffic is pretty heavy sometimes, and they move pretty quickly down that road. And so we've been putting out flares and this right by the signs, and that seemed to help a lot. And so I was trying to close the road, but they wouldn't let me do it. And I thought, well, maybe we just need to have some protesters, like the bridge in Portland. They closed the bridge in Portland. Maybe we could just have some protesters.
Bring a few kayaks.
Well, kayak, well, yeah. Maybe we could coming down the Coffee Creek there or something. But anyway.
All right, Rita?
Our neighborhood association reorganized sometime in the 80s, and I was the first secretary, and I don't like to be a secretary because I like to just listen and forget to write down things. And so I thought, well, we don't have any money, I'll become treasurer. Well, we decided to plant all those trees, and we started collecting money from people, and we got a grant. Turned out treasurer was kind of a busy position. And then up to date now, we've had to change our meeting nights 2 nights. Our regular meeting last month and our steering committee this month, because we meet on the first Thursday, and we are the snow cone people. That's really what I want to say.
Yeah.
At the concerts, and so we changed it for that reason, and we actually got a couple that is only able to come on Wednesdays last month, so it worked out nicely to get to meet some more people. And then, you know how active our neighborhood association's been with the Carnegie changes, and we had 4 requests that we wanted them to consider changing, and actually right now I can only think of 3, so Jesse will have to say the other one, but they wanted to put plastic slides, and we were able to keep metal, and they wanted to change the swings, and they're not exactly like the old ones and like we wanted, but there will be a metal frame for the swings. And the one we failed on was that we wanted to keep bark dust under the playground equipment, but they're using a rubber mat, which we didn't approve of, but we did feel like, and I can't remember what the other thing was. Jesse could tell you.
I think it was the
that.
height.
Huh?
The height of the swings.
Oh, the height, yeah, of the swings. Yeah. Wasn't it the height of the swing?
Right.
Yeah. And then we have a group of volunteers who have been cleaning the promenade along the bluff, and I haven't participated, but it's been really wonderful changes taking place, and cooperation from the city helping too. So that's it, I think.
Okay. Karen?
Okay. Spent too much time when I didn't live in the city hanging out at city meetings and visiting everybody else's neighborhood association meetings. So when I did move into the city, I better participate in my neighborhood association, and I made a semi-deliberate decision to move into Rivercrest. I kind of wanted to live in McLaughlin, but rentals are a little limited. So love my neighborhood, and not much of a recruiter, unfortunately. However, when I do meet new people, we have a lot of people come down to the museum researching their houses, and we have more people moving into Rivercrest that are interested. And Rivercrest is a post-World War II, basically, neighborhood. So houses there are now eligible for the National Register because they've passed their 50th birthday. And if I find people researching, I make sure they know we have a neighborhood association and they're welcome to attend, and I haven't seen a one of them yet. And our dessert potluck is coming up next week, if my mouth works, and I'll let Harris give the details.
Okay. I got involved when Gaffney Lane was defunct, and they tried to combine it with Hillendale, and I went to some of those meetings. It was at the police station, and no one was coming from my neighborhood, and so I thought, well, then why should I go? And then Fred Meyer was doing its big, huge expansion project, and so they actually had the meeting at the place where they had ours, which is Berry Hill, and there was quite a large number of people there, and I thought, oh, well, now this is better. And so then it went from there when Chris Wadsworth and William Gifford were trying to get our meetings going, and I got yanked up front and voted in before I knew what was happening, and now here I am. But I love being involved, and I think that we've started really utilizing Next Door Neighbor. At our Gaffney Lane meeting that we just had Thursday night, we had over, I don't think everybody signed in, but we had about 23 people that did. A lot of new faces that, and then a lot that have been there the last 2 or 3 times, so there's consistency. Very exciting. There's a lot of excitement by these new move-ins, so hoping that that'll keep going. And I do think that listening, a lot of it looks like service really does help. So, and I know Park Place used to do a cleanup. I don't know if they still do, but that seems to draw people, so I'm going to look into doing something with that. I think that would help. But our meeting went really, really well. We learned, one of the things that came out of that was that Gaffney Lane, I don't know how many of you know where Gaffney Lane Elementary is, that there's a house and the road juts out right in front of there, and it's just horrible. Well, actually, they're doing some realignment with the pole right now, and next summer they will realign that street. So that will be a lot nicer for those neighborhoods and those children. And we have a big concern. We have 2 major retirement centers in our neighborhood, and there's always concern about safety, especially coming on to Malala Avenue, those people that want to go to Fred Meyer and the post office and such. So we're working with Public Works. They've done a lot for us, and we have a few more requests, and I do see success when we get the neighborhood behind it. So that is very exciting to me, to be able to find success in our requests. So continue to work with the city. It does work. All right, Barbara?
I got involved in the Park Place neighborhood when we moved in, which was in 2004 in the winter, and mainly over a land use issue, the Park Place concept plan. The rest is history. How do I, what I'm going to do, I'm passing these around. Did you pass? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I made this up. We're going to have a Barlow Crest potluck. It's a subdivision in the Park Place neighborhood. So they're going to have a night out on the 14th of August. And I plan to put these out there because there's a lot of people in this in this little neighborhood, the Belleville Crest neighborhood, that I never see, really. Do we? No. So hopefully that helps. And if I heard that you're having dessert things and hot dogs and things like that at your meeting, whatever. I heard different things. It might be a good idea at those smaller things, but not at the actual meeting, to have some kind of a, but your neighborhood is small.
And we do. I went through and passed out the invitations to the potluck. No time at all.
Yeah.
So we do that, and you meet the people, you know them, and
you have, that's good. So also Next Door has been very popular in our neighborhood and Park Place neighborhood. So I put the meetings on there, and we have picked up 1 or 2 people at the general meetings. So hopefully that continues. Also Facebook. You can go to Facebook, this Park Place neighborhood Facebook page. Tom Guile put that together, I think. Did Tom put that together, Steve? Nick, okay. So you can post on there. And basically that's what I do.
Okay. Anything else about Park Place that you want to announce?
Well, it's all on here. What's happening? And like I said, in the small neighborhood of Barlow Crest, which is at the end of Park Place neighborhood, we're having a big potluck, and that's well attended. Some of the people are in the county, but it's well attended.
Great. Jesse?
Thank you. I moved to town in early 2013. Got a postcard, I think, that week for the neighborhood association, and just went. I forget what the topic was, but once I was there, our dynamic chair, Denise McGriff, wouldn't let me go, and that's, I think, the same for most of the people that attend. So we have a very engaged group of people who care about the neighborhood, and that's really what it is. What I've done to recruit, I've recruited a handful of people. They're mostly from my street and within a block or two, and have just moved in and want to get to know them, invite them to come along. But I think that's a good question. Since I've been here, the neighborhood association hasn't engaged in any analysis of outreach, really, except for using Nextdoor, which has only recently come online. So, as far as neighborhood updates, Tony, your department's the one that's working with Friends of Trees, right?
Correct.
You want to talk about that, or should I just give a quick?
You go ahead.
Okay. So everyone's heard of Friends of Trees, the nonprofit based in Portland, and they're working this year with the McLaughlin Neighborhood Association. Is what I understand is kind of a pilot program to see how it goes. The actual planting is December 5th, and outreach is happening now, where people can get trees for street trees or yard trees at a discounted price than they would at retail or wholesale. Friends of Trees buys them, in bulk and goes around. So we're going to have a big neighborhood event with everyone helping dig holes and planting whatnot in November and December. So that's really exciting. And of course, we've been meeting with the Providence Willamette Falls group several times, like they talked about. And we have, as Rita mentioned, the library and snow cones. I think that's about it.
There's one thing that I did mention is that Terry Stewart, who's a realtor and lives in our neighborhood, every year organizes this neighborhood association, anybody that wants to, garage sale. And that's the 14th, 15th, and 16th. So if you happen to be anywhere in our neighborhood, there'll be garage sales and rummage sales. And I go to St. Paul's Episcopal Church and we're having a big rummage sale.
That's August 15th, 16th?
14th, 15th, and 16th.
Great. Joyce?
Okay, so I'm Joyce Gifford in the Hillendale Neighborhood Association. Got involved because when we moved to Oregon City, I think it's about 2014, no, not 2000,
No.
2004, got involved in the McLaughlin neighborhood because we lived right across the street from the Carnegie and the Richard Bloom Tots Park and all those things that were going on right across the street from me. How could you not get involved? And McLaughlin is such a great neighborhood association that I cried when I had to leave. But I moved up to Hillendale neighborhood, which didn't have a neighborhood association, but when they were all becoming reactivated, Chris Wadsworth was really, really instrumental in arm twisting and needing to focus some energy somewhere since I left McLaughlin. We got Hillendale going, and it's been kind of cool seeing there's big differences in this city. And I love Oregon City, but every neighborhood is so different and has very, very different needs. So Hillendale's not like McLaughlin at all, but we recruit just by word of mouth a lot in our neighborhoods. That's, our current chair is a neighbor of ours that when he moved into the neighborhood, we invited him to come to the meeting. Our meetings have been sparsely attended, and we're still working at how we can increase that attendance. We get great speakers to come in, and it's really disappointing when there are more speakers present than there are neighbors present. So looking for ideas from you on how to increase that attendance at our meetings. And that said, what things going on in our neighborhood with Newell Creek Canyon is our backyard, and lots of great things going on with Metro and Newell Creek Canyon. And so their Gateway project is in the Hillendale neighborhood, right behind the old Pizza Hut, for those of you who want to know where that is, at the end of Warner Milne, where it just kind of drives in down the hill.
Fox Lane.
Fox Lane and Warner Milne. So that's a big thing in our neighborhood. And also there's the movies in the park at Wesley Lynn. And so that'll be starting this Friday, because every Friday in August, the city has movies in the park. So the first Friday, that's this Friday, the Parks and Recreation Advisory Council is also going to have some great displays. We're going to have a lot of door prizes for people to win. So if you come and pick up a ticket, and some of the prizes are free rental at a picnic shelter for your family. You just need to make an arrangement for that. A free night stay down at the campground if you have your own motorhome. There'll be swim passes, lots of swim passes, and other fun prizes. So come this Friday night to the movies in the park at Wesley Lynn, and then every Friday night in August. So
what time?
I know you're going to ask. At dusk. So this Friday, come at 6:30. That's when we're going to start the activities. Oh, and this Friday there's going to be a bounce house for the kids. So come on down, and you can purchase food to eat from the Little League at their concession stand that they have there. So come spend some money, help out the youth sports in Oregon City, and have a good time. The other thing that's going on at Hillendale Park is they've now have some pickleball courts. So if you're interested in pickleball, see me, and I can give you some information about when they have somebody from the Pickleball Association there. They have lockers there that they store the equipment in. And so if somebody from their association is there, there's some rental equipment that they'll lend you for free so you can play pickleball. They also have moved in a porta potty so that you don't have to walk half a mile to the bathrooms. And again, that's only open when somebody from the Pickleball Association is there with the key. But come and join in the activities. And Hillendale Neighborhood Association has two of the most awesome parks, Hillendale and Wesley Lynn.
Faith?
Oh, why did I get involved? I was doing all kinds of things with national politics and been doing that for a couple of years, and thought, I don't know that much about my neighborhood and stuff that's going on around the block. So So I got one of the cards in the mail and went to a meeting, and the second meeting I went to, I was, what would you say? I was chosen to be the CIC representative, and I've been coming ever since. I enjoy this. That, to me, this is the bottom rung of the democracy ladder, where you have input into your city. This is the way you get it. And the way I've been reaching out is the last 2 years. I've been a member of CIC for 2 years, and I've gone to the Health and Safety Fair and National Night Out 2 times. And the Health and Safety Fair is right in the middle of Hillendale, so we get a lot of Hillendale people. But being there in the booth and asking people, you just step up to people and say, where do you live? Here's a map of the neighborhoods in Oregon City. Do you live in Oregon City? Oh, show me where. And then you tell them all about the neighborhood association and what it means and everything. And people seem enthusiastic about it and they have questions and stuff, but we don't have any controversies in Hillendale. So the only time we have people come is when there's, like a bunch of people came once because they said homeless people were sleeping in Hillendale Park. And then they were upset. And then it got taken care of, and they quit coming. So, I think if we had more controversy, we can
see what we can do.
We don't have
see what we can do. Move him up there.
Yeah. But anyway, that's our steering committee is supposed to meet tomorrow night, so we're going to be at the National Night Out instead.
Are you bringing Mexican food to eat while you're there, since that's usually your bring some street tacos. Harris.
My family moved to Oregon City and to Rivercrest in 1992. We bought the house from Jim and Diane McKnight, and then Diane was a longtime chair of the Rivercrest Neighborhood Association, long time, and she tried to get me to come to the meetings. We see each other all the time. She lives across the park from me, and I never went to a meeting until she said, Harris, we're just walking our dogs. She was, we're all old and tired. And I said, okay, if nobody else is going to do it, I'll step up. And I went to the first meeting where I was elected chairman. It was it was great that the core group has mostly stayed, with I can't remember who else, Eileen and Kruger and and Diane and Vern and Val come to the meetings, and we've had, I suspect, a standard kind of a turnout, which is about the same number of non-officers as officers at the meeting, but we probably average around 10 or 12, and a couple of times we've had better turnouts. When Bob LaSalle came, and I put on the postcard that, hey, you got traffic concerns, show up, right, and tell them about them. So, and that we got 5 or 6 extra people for that meeting. On August 11th, 1 week from Tuesday, we're going to have our dessert potluck in the park. The Neighborhood Association provides hot dogs and water and hot dog buns
and stuff.
You got to bring your own ketchup or mayo. Right? We're not going all out. No, we provide all that. And there's tons of dessert, right? So I mean, there's always desserts to take home, and it always amazes me how people just get up and leave with their dessert laying there, right? I mean, I'm always there consequently. I have to take a lot of these desserts home myself, so I encourage anybody to come by.
What time?
That is 6 o'clock. I have to remember. It's on the sign. I'll have to go home and look in the garage. Pretty sure it's 6
If that
o'clock.
changes, let Laura know so she can let us know. Thank you, guys. That's great. I love hearing. I think if we can share with each other, and it brings back the excitement and reminds us of why we really got involved. And if you listened, a lot of us were just dragged into this. So guess what? It's up to us to help drag more people. And if you share the positive of why and what you can do, I think that really helps. So we will now. Almost done, guys, almost done.
I'll be quick.
The city has some city business.
All right, I'll be quick. So first thing, if you have any events, email us and we'll put it on our city website. Why not? We get more people too. So any cleanups or ice cream socials or whatever, just let us know and we'll advertise it for you as well. Second, there's a library groundbreaking on Saturday the 8th from 10 to 12. There's going to be a ceremony at 11. The actual construction won't start until the 10th, though, so it's a little bit pre-construction. It's just a groundbreaking. If you have any questions, there's stuff on our website, or give me a call. In addition to the movies in the park, the city has free summer concerts in the park every Thursday at 6:30 at the end of the Oregon Trail. Y'all all know National Night Out is tomorrow. Bring chairs if you want. There's going to be music provided by Brady Goss.
Which I've heard phenomenal things about.
Oh, good.
So.
We had him last year at our neighborhood
Very
picnic.
good.
Did you?
Get-
Bring your chairs.
Bring your chairs. CIC goals. So we'll come back with CIC goals. Continue to email me CIC goals as you sort of think about them. I've got a couple of emails since our last meeting. We sort of left it where people are going to keep emailing us CIC goals, and we'd sort of put something together for you guys to think about. But I only got a couple emails, so
Maybe you could send out what's been submitted so far, and that'll help trigger our brains.
Okay, I'll send you a follow-up email.
Maybe in September when our brains are back. When our brains are back.
All right, and then the next thing, the last thing, is an update on our code, the CIC code that you guys had sort of moved forward. So we heard back from DLCD, the state agency that oversees citizen communication, that we don't need to go before them, which we had originally thought that we did. We sent them all of the draft language, and they thought that it was good enough and that they don't need to see it. It's only if a lot of cities are sort of getting rid of a CIC and appointing that CIC to their planning commission or city commission, and those need to go before the committee. But we do not. So that means the next step is the city commission. And so there's going to be another city commission work session on the 11th. So that's next week. So more to come on that. And then there's no September meeting since it's a holiday. So we'll see everyone back in October. I have some emailing to do. If anyone has any questions about anything, email me as well. And we'll have a lot on our agenda in October.
One thing I don't know if you noticed on this postcard she put on here, not an HOA. I actually, on my big postcard that I mailed out, put this. I changed, instead of saying Gaffney Lane Neighborhood Association, I just put Gaffney Lane Neighborhood Meeting. And I put really big, this is not a homeowners association. And I had, I think it was 2 or 3 people come specifically because I had put that. And so it changed their thought of what it was. So that, and I know that's a problem we're all having, as people think it's an HOA. So that'll be part of our goals. All right, anything else that anybody thought of? We will adjourn until October.